that was, and then, oh yeah. I had all late and all that. She had earphones in. She's trying to talk to me. Well, no, no. The period before, her prep. Yeah. That's at 9. Yeah. Okay. I know she's going to another class and all that.
Karen, which one did we stop at?
I have 36 on my PowerPoint.
See this, thank you. Let me find it. Okay, infancy.
What did you guys do? How was it? Weird kids back to it.
You told me your teacher cried.
Yeah, they're just big time. My teacher cried. Kids are bad. Oh, no, they know that. Mine are bad.
There we are, yay! Is that it right there?
Yeah, I guess I'm backwards. I'm back.
Well, hey, at least you're going the right direction. You can just flip yourself. Oh, golly. Oh, the mountains are beautiful out there. One more? Right there? Okay. You got it? Thank you. You guys turn around and check out the mountain back there. Isn't that beautiful? I've never noticed that before. Gosh, that's gorgeous.
Last time I was looking for the thing to lift them on my fighter. Where is it at?
Okay. This is going to be kind of like our nutrition lecture, okay? Since we all eat, you know, we all know nutrition to a certain level. And so we kind of get lulled into thinking that we know more than what we really do. On this lecture for this test, make sure that you know all the benchmarks and the ages on both Erickson and on Piaget. Okay, so that when you are speaking with one of your peers, you can speak very succinctly onto the cognitive and the developmental level that your client is on. Okay, in comparison to, and again, I put that in quotes, normal. Okay, so a preschooler, their cognitive skills at 3 years old, they want to please you. They're like a little chatty Cathy. You know, they just talk. They want to be around you. They want to emulate you. They're just, you know, willing to share. They can count to 3 or a little higher. They can identify objects and 1,000-word vocabulary. And they're picking up daily. They're just, incessant talking and questioning. You know, you are their everything. They look at you in total awe and want to emulate you. You know, if only they could have, you know, the mind that you have, if they even have the ability to think that advanced. You're the end all. You know everything as far as they're concerned. And that takes, if you handle that in the right way, you've got to, with intrepidation on yourself, make sure that you realize that their little eyes are on you. They're watching everything you're doing. And they may not be able to word the inconsistencies, but they will reflect on it at some point. Okay, so then their motor skills are more refined. Look at this. At 3 years old, they can dress and undress themselves. You know, I remember, with Elizabeth, when I'd go to help her, she'd say, no, I do it myself. No. And she would be like really, hostile because that was very important to her to let herself for her own competency and also to show me that, she could do it herself. She wants to do it. Have you ever been in a car and you have a backseat driver telling you, oh, park here, oh, turn right, and you kind of, you put up with it, but you get a little annoyed with it. Well, they have that same annoyance level, but they're vocalizing it a little differently. They can manage their buttons and zippers. That sounds like not a big deal. But, most of our cerebral palsy folks, at adulthood can't do that because they don't have the fine motor skills. Climb stairs or tricycle, manipulate clay. They can brush their teeth. Yes, they can, but, you really want to watch it because you don't want tooth decay. We've talked about in this class how that can turn into septicemia, and this age group is probably not going to make it out of septicemia. And so something as minor as brushing their teeth, you want to make sure that you do supervise that and that you get in there and take their little hand on top of yours and go over their teeth and make sure that you get it. And it's really weird if I can say in this area, like I was taught to brush top down, but actually you're supposed to do little circles on each tooth. And so I think that's more difficult than going top to down. Okay, so then their cognitive skills for a 4-year-old. Okay, look at this. From 4 to 3, they've already doubled their vocabulary. Look at, they can count from 15 to 30, where previously it was, approximately to 3. Able to print, state their full name. Okay, there's a star on that. I want you to know that. Girls tend to yell in arguments. I gotta tell you, it's programmed into us. Little girls, adult women, talk. We want to talk about everything. And then when we're done talking about it, we want to turn around and analyze it from that direction. That's the way we're put together. Okay, so men, you have to love and tolerate us. Because that's how we are. You're going to be like, oh my gosh, can she look at this from any other angle? And you've already solved it in your mind. And it's done, sealed, put to bed, over. And she's still, yeah, you're laughing because you have your mate and that it, I got to tell you, this is what I say to Wade. I know you've solved this. And I know that I have, but I still have these feelings and I got to talk it through. And he'll take a big sigh and just, okay. And I know that he's not 100% listening. I know that. Do I get upset with him? I used to. But now I realize, hey, that's what I love about him. He's a man. That's how they're wired. And it's so funny because he'll solve something like, boom. I'm embarrassed to say this, but one time I was blow drying my hair and my hair, the end of it caught on fire and I could smell my hair and I was like, wait, he comes in, I'm like, oh my gosh, look, and I'm kind of all frantic, and he goes over and pulls the plug out and I'm like, thank you. I couldn't get it to turn off, it wouldn't turn off. The blow dryer wouldn't. And I was freaking out, and he was just like as calmly as could be, And that shows, in a comical way, the difference. Men go right to the resolution, and women want to talk about it. That's why we women form more intimate bonds. That's why men don't. That's why men, if you really want to get down to it, when they are expressing their love, they do it more physically than women do. Okay, it's just the way we're put together. And don't get upset with your boyfriend, husband, or girlfriend, wife. Just embrace the difference and smile at it and try to remember. And I can't say that I'm 100%, but as the older I'm getting closer to 100%, realizing this is the way it is. Why would I fight the way it is? I'm just wasting my own energy. Okay, but anyways, girls tend to yell in arguments. Why? Because they want to be heard. Boys are physical, rough and tumble activities. This is not stereotypical. This is the way it is. Another quick story I want to tell you. My little daughter we had this little slide, and it had 3 rungs on the ladder, and she would just prance up there, flop her little rear on it, and slide down and run around. And she just would put her little stuffed animals on it and just play. I'd walk by, kind of check on her. It was always the same thing. She did that until she was 5 years old. Okay, a bright child did that until they were 5 years. That's how she played. And it started like at 2. Okay, now listen to this. My son is born, and I kid you not, this is an honest to God true story. At 9 months old, the kid could barely walk. He takes his little pony, gets his little pony on wheels up on that platform. He's straddling the bar so he can put his leg over it to take the pony down at 9 months old. I just happened to walk by and saw what he was, and I remember thinking, holy moly, I better relax. This kid's going to take me for everything I've got. He was always on the edge, always, this Mr. Risk Taker, just go, go, go. Heather learned how to ride her bike. She was about 4. Kelly was riding his bike, I kid you not. He was riding a 2-wheeler bike at 2 years old. He's long and lanky and just super coordinated. One time we were up at the cabin, the same cabin that we're trying to sell. He was about, I don't know, maybe 13 years old. We were it's a big, steep roof. Wayne is up on his gear, literally like Batman, scaling the side of the cabin to get to the top to start taking the roof off, right? And I'm in the wheelbarrow. I'm picking up the little pieces that are coming that he's throwing off that are the roof tiles. Then there was a hill. We put our old 65 truck, that was the only thing we had, right? No power brakes, no nothing. Wayne put it up on the top of the hill, or kind of into the hill, so the 2 wheels were literally on the hill. And then we put this plank, this board, across. I would give the wheelbarrow to Kelly. Kelly would take the wheelbarrow and just like this on this little plank, and I had that thing full. Okay, now this is the part. He would take that, he would dump it, he would fly over and land on the other side of the truck on the little ledge. And that was just another example. He is 4.5 years old. He's in preschool. And I had him tested because I didn't know if he was ready for school or not. And I didn't, my kids, I didn't want to harm him. You can relate to this. And so I had him tested. And the tester, said to me, she goes, he's a really bright little boy, but I don't think he's ready. And I said, well, that's kind of a dichotomy. What do you mean by that? He's bright, but you don't think he's ready. She goes, if I hadn't seen this, and she goes, I hope you believe me. But he was sitting there answering everything. All of a sudden, he jumped up, put his hand on the chair, did a flip with his legs, jumped up on the other side, sat down, and continued. And she said, I don't think he's ready because of that. And I said, let's hold him back. It's just the difference. Okay, preschool. Okay, 5 years old now. Okay, they're comfortable with themselves, and that's where you want them to be. satisfied with the world of home and family, you know what? Even if there's problems in the family, at home, they're still comfortable with it. It's all they know. You know, and that's what I want to challenge you right now. Your home life is 100% comfortable to you. So that becomes your norm, even if it's not normal. So if there's drinking in the home, if there's hostility in the home, if there's beating in the home, that becomes the norm. If there's drugs in the home, that's what they just feel is normal. So then they grow up, and that becomes their norm. Then they take a class like this and get around other people that are striving to be more and better. And it's like, whoa. So why is it coming so easy for them and not for me? And then that's when they start to question their norm. Maybe you've already been in that place. You know, you grew up one thing and it felt so comfortable. It felt so comfortable, it's like your eye color. You can't distinguish what makes you feel comfortable. And then you get in other situations and you realize, hey, this was not good. You kind of knew it growing up, but you wouldn't identify it because why? It would shake your own security. And then you're on this path of trying to figure out what you want your life to be. And if you don't accept the paradigm switches, this is important, I want you to hear this. You're going to have, and it happened to me, there was drinking in my family and a lot of chaos. And then in my early, like about 25, and I got to tell you, I loved high school, was involved in everything, you know, was a good student. At 25, I felt lonely and isolated, and everything I touched turned to ash. And I was like, whoa, same person, what's going on here? That's when I started getting into self-help books and started reading, trying to figure it out. Maybe you've started that on yourself. That is when I went to the EPA counselor at work, and they said, hey, I want you to go to codependency meetings. The first time you go, you're going to feel weird. The second time, you're going to go, what's going on? The third time, you're not going to wait until you can get back there again. And that's exactly what happened. And then you start to realize, you know what? I did not grow up in norm. I lulled myself into believing it was norm for self-preservation. And so then you start, you know, hopefully if you're bright, if you're not, you will repeat the same mistakes. Why? You might know they're wrong, but it just feels so right. It feels so comfortable because that's all you know. Am I making myself clear? It's a wild thing. And that's what's cool about being an adult. You get to change it. Okay, definitely learn computers, make believe, yeah, absolutely. And to a point, and I would say a far point in my Kimism view, imagination is great. We've already talked about that it is a spark of creativity, and creativity is a spark of genius. And so you want to keep that going. Okay, they're going to have sibling rivalry, okay? Everything that another kid in the family got, that kid wants or thinks is better. Okay? Oh, you know, this is, okay, must welcome new baby. How would you feel? Okay, for 10, you're this age. Well, let's say that you're 20. And, let's say you're 25. And you get married, and you're in total bliss. You're like, wow, this is really cool. Chase, has this ever happened to you? Where you're like, oh, baby, baby. You know, you're just like total love, total lust, total everything. And your relationship is going strong and you're feeling good about it. What happens if at that moment your mate turned to you and said, oh, honey, you know what? You are so awesome. You know, you're such a turn on. You are everything I ever dreamed. You make me whole. You're so good at being you. I think I want to bring another chick into this relationship. Yeah. That chick would hopefully say, out of here. Well, that's the same way it is with the baby. Okay, you have that first kid, you're all googie and over them, and everything is like the center of both parents, hopefully. And then you bring a new baby. What do you think that first kid is thinking? Hey, wait, I was everything. You know, what do you mean? And now they have to share the spotlight. There's a lot of books written on this very subject, and the person never gets over it. That firstborn, you know what I'm talking about. That firstborn can really hold on to the reins and take it into, young adulthood, and typically until when they get distracted with their own family. Okay, may displays regressive behavior, trying to get the attention. Understand, this is the part of where we all have had this emotional conflict. And we all have to get along to move along, and we have to find some way to make it work. You want to obviously reassure them with love, attention, and show interest in both of them. Okay, then we talked a little bit about phobias and nightmares. I called them night terrors. As thought process, imagination, memories developed, these night fears are going to happen. You need to work through them with the child. Loud animals, dark monster, all of that. We've all gone through wondering what's under our bed when we were a little kid, right? What was in the closet. So what do you want to do? You want to minimize the exposure. This is not the time to be seeing, apocalypse movies, zombie movies. Their imaginations can't handle that at a preschool age. Actually, maybe up into, young adulthood. So you want to discuss anything that is on their minds, their nightmares, and try to tease out the nightmare. Try to figure out what they're trying to solve in that nightmare. And if it truly is a scary movie, then you know what? You need to abandon those. But if there's something else there, maybe they're being bullied at school, maybe they don't understand what's going on, maybe there's a rift between mom and dad, whatever it is, that dream, if you can tease it out, it's there. But this is the problem. How many of you remember your dreams? You had it, but you don't remember it. You've got to verbalize it right after. And then verbalize it, if you're kind of half out of it, write it down or a few words so that in the morning you can discuss it. Kind of get to the bottom of it. Okay, we've already talked about, masturbation. I don't know, I don't think there's anything else to say, but that it needs to be done privately. And young children will pull and tug at themselves, and you just tell them that's inappropriate. Nothing is abnormal. Teach privacy. Do not shame, threaten, or punish. I agree with that. Okay, enuresis is bedwetting. Okay, this is where they've already been potty trained, and things were going good. They'd wake up, the bed was dry, and then all of a sudden now they're bedwetting. Something psychologically or physiologically is going on. So what do you want to do? Okay, you want to minimize water, maybe 3 to 4 hours before they go to bed. No more liquids. Make sure you potty them before they go to bed. Make sure that, when you get up to go to the bathroom, maybe you go in there, into their room, and walk them to the toilet and have them potty. You might want to put a bed wrap, a mattress pad that won't allow the water to soak through the mattress pad, just to, preserve the mattress. But if it's nothing, and then if you want to, you can have them checked out by a urologist. I think that's going too far for a little one. But then you notice, because why? Diabetics, a pre-diabetic is going to pee a lot. So there might be that going on. there might be a physiological reason. Barring that there is none, then that is where you want to, you know, talk to them, be with them, reassure them more. Oops, sorry. Okay, Erickson's, okay, the challenge, okay, now we're at school age. Okay, we just finished preschool. Now we're at industry versus inferiority. Okay, guess what? Everyone knows within the first month or two of school who the smartest kid is. Even in first grade, even in second grade. Okay, we all went through this, you know, trying to figure our, you know, try to get ourselves, you know, ready for the playing field, if you will. Okay, so to get along with others, you need to learn school subjects. You know what? Some people aren't interested in math. Some people aren't interested in science. If you're one, and I suspect everyone in this room was fairly comfortable with math, even though you think you're not good, that's because you weren't the best. But everyone in this room is good with math, and everyone in this room is good in science, otherwise none of us would be here. Okay, I know that about. We have more alike than we have unalike, dissimilar, because we're all in this room together. I know that. And time you graduate, we're going to even be closer alike. Time you have probably about 2 years of work experience. The only difference between you and I is going to be our age. And whatever age brings. That's it. Is that wild? That's industry versus inferiority. Yeah, Karen.
So that's what the stage is called?
Yeah.
Well,
For
that-
Eric Erickson, the psychosocial.
Okay, so that will be on the test, like the psychosocial?
Oh, absolutely, will be on the
Or
test.
it will be specific to industry versus inferiority?
Yeah, and so what is school, neighborhood, getting along with others, self-esteem, confidence? You have these milestones that you have to achieve in this stage of Erickson's in order to have full industry. Okay, and you know, I'm just looking at myself. I was one of those kids. I'm not kidding you. I was a total, talk about imagination. I was imagining up until I was about in second grade, and I was totally comfortable there. And then I remember in third grade, I was like, oh my gosh, everyone's smarter than me. And I remember feeling like, you know, what am I going to do about this? And man, I started learning everything I could. I self-studied in third grade. I went to summer school. You know, I felt like this big panic, like I had to get caught up. And then right about 7th, 8th grade, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm finally caught up. And then it was just kind of normal after that. But you too will have a time period in your life, whatever it is, and just because it's later doesn't mean you're less intelligent. It just means that that is where your trajectory was and where life had you. But you're going to look around and go, whoa, another time period in my life, I remember holding Heather, just bringing her home from the hospital and thinking, oh my gosh, I've got this child that's dependent on me. And I remember saying to my mom, Mom, what am I going to do? I'm like so ill prepared for this. And I remember my mom said, Kim, she actually called me Kimmy, nursing was good for our family, and it worked and kept us afloat. Heather was born in March. By June, I was in anatomy. That's how serious I took it. Because I just felt very, oh my gosh, what have I done? Okay, so, you know, even though I was older than 12, that was my industry. You know, that I got to get with the program here. I can't be left behind. Bad enough for individually being left behind, but then taking someone there with me was more than I could bear. Okay, managing civil rivalry. This is gonna happen, I don't know, does anyone have a story about civil rivalry? We all have to contend with it, right? What's that? Yeah, do you have a story about sibling rivalry?
I should. Which siblings?
Okay, I gotta tell you, I'm 63. My sister she's 3 years older, so she's 66. Still happens to this day. Yes.
It seems like me and my sisters, we're all in competition when we can make the most money.
Okay. Okay, that's a good one.
And I'm like, my little sister is not gonna make more money than me. She's in the military and she's going for nursing too, so I'm gonna be glad. She's not gonna make more money than me.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember in the sorority house, we always said, if you can make $3,000 more than your age, you're doing good. Now things, the economy is a lot different, okay? I gotta tell you, yeah, it's wild. And all I can say is, if you let that go, you'll always kind of go back to it, then you have to let it go again. And then you'll take 3 steps, and then it will sneak its ugly head up. And then you have to let it go. That's at least how it's been for me. And then I get to walk 4 steps before it sneaks itself up. And then, it's wild. I've been talking to my brother on the phone a little bit, and it's wild to think that I have lived more life without him than I lived with him at this point. And I hear him on the phone, and honestly, I smile as he's talking, and I hang up the phone, and I say to Wayne, who is that man? I feel like I should know him, but I really don't if I really reflect on the conversation and different things that he has said. But I have to tell you that if we can let go of that in our adulthood, maybe you had the great fortune of having great parents, and therefore they managed all of this child rivalry stuff perfectly, and you're like, what the heck is she talking about? You know what? And I say to you, get on your knees and be thankful, if that's you. But otherwise, if it's not you, I say try to let go of it. But it's not going to be just a poof, let go. But you need to be thoughtful of your own thoughts, and you're held accountable for your own thoughts also. So when those thoughts come in, you need to push them out and have a game plan on what else you're going to think about. Okay, maybe she starts making more money than you. Okay? And maybe she drives up in that car and she's like, ooh, check it out, Tatiana, And you're going to have to go out there and think through that and go, oh, I love this car. This is so great. You look good in it. Wow, I dig that car. You know what? I even love the color. When you hate the color. You know what I'm saying? Because you don't want to be that person. And the chances of, but I do have to tell you, and Karen, I get back to this with you. Life is funny. Because life is going to take you all these different places, and you're going to be up sometimes, and you're going to be down sometimes. And if you were a gracious person when you were down, it makes being up that much sweeter. I am so glad, even when I felt the hostility in my heart, that I didn't act on it, that I kept it cool. And because then when I was on the upswing of it, I was able to share it. And it felt good to be able to share. And so when she's on her upside swing, and think about how you're going to react, because it could happen.
I remember now.
Yeah.
I don't have any specific stories. Instead of me and him, we used to fight. Like, fight. Like, throw hands at each other. Yeah, the last time that happened, the last one we had, was actually high school.
Wow.
Yeah. And that was true because we were with our cousins a lot. And at the time, they were being really shitty.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was
Yeah.
the last time we
Parents
played.
can be turds too, you know?
Hey, take it
Yeah. You take a couple blows and you're like, can we talk about this?
right here. This is getting ridiculous.
It's a funny thing. Kind of talking about that fist fighting. My husband had a friend who has since gone to prison. And it's really a sad story. They worked together, and those two were just locked heads like crazy. And they were young men, 23, 25, 24, young men. And this guy would tease my husband, my husband, bright red hair, very fair, freckles, you know what I'm saying, and tall. And so this guy teased my husband like crazy. Okay, now they were working for the water company, a well-respected job that any man wants to keep. My husband picked that guy up, and they went behind the shed, the work area, the shop, and my husband pummeled him. And he was like, and then from that day they became best friends. They had to establish who had the testosterone and how this order was going to go. They did, and until that guy went to prison, he went to prison for drugs. Lost his job, really sad story. The wife ended up having abdominal cancer. She died, left the two boys. It was really a tragic story. But anyways, they were best of friends. He'd come over, they'd share tools, and everything was, copacetic. But sometimes it takes, getting that out, especially if someone's spurring it on. Shame on them, but it happens. Okay, so what is Piaget? Okay, now, we were in pre-operational, before. Okay, now we're getting into concrete operations. 7 to 11. Actions are internalized. You want to teach them. Even Sesame Street talks about reversibility. First things first, last things first. When the child's walking to school and back. Arranging things in a series. Conservation of matter. So this is if they see it, then they believe it. That's very concrete. A good example of this, my grandson, we have this long driveway from the street all the way back down. Our property's an acre. So this little road, driveway goes from the front of the house to the back. Well, we have gophers like crazy. And so gophers climb under this driveway and then they cave it in as we drive over it. Well, this one time, it caved in really big. And it was like about half the size of this. And I said to Logan, those little gophers must have had a den down there, and that's where they slept. Well, Logan, at 7 years old, ran over and started pulling the blacktop. Nana, I want to see their den. I said, Logan, it's collapsed, it's caved. No, Nana, I want to see their den. That was him with concrete thinking. They can't visualize that, there was a den there, the truck rode, as simple as it sounds to us, that's a real live example of concrete thinking. Okay, so 6 to 10, period of rapid learning. Yeah, rapid learning. Look at you. When you were 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, that was intense learning. Educational, high encounters with others. You're being, kind of in situations where you're learning how to act appropriately, be appropriately in multiple groups. Expand awareness of the world, maturity, steady growth. Okay, their deciduous teeth now are leaving, their permanent ones are coming. Okay, significant person. Okay, now listen to this. This is very big for this age. From 6 to 10 years old, remember how we were stressing the family on all of Erik Erikson's psychosocial areas? Now it changes from family to teacher to peers to best friend. Independence is important. Production of things, collection, challenges, all of these things. You know, this is one, look at, it goes from family to the teacher. Boy, you want to be, you know, at that back to school night. You want to see that teacher. You want to know what that teacher is subliminally teaching your kid. Because now the focus is on that person and not on you. You know, if you need to change classrooms, change schools, whatever, do it. Because they're spending more one-on-one time with that teacher than they probably are with you in your own home. I remember way back when, my parents, because my dad wasn't very physical, they thought, oh, let's put Bob in Boy Scouts. They put him in Boy Scouts, and my brother just rebelled against it. They were like, okay, let's try motorcycles. Well, come to find out, the scout leader was, you know, doing weird things with these boys. And my brother didn't want to vocalize it or say it, but wanted no part of it. You know, so weird things happen, and if you're not in there kind of seeing what's happening, and you're smart enough to figure out if someone's grooming or if they're legitimate. Okay. Cognitive and motor development, yeah. It is, they know how to run, they can probably beat all of us at running, they're kicking, their skills are real high. Okay, friendly, they're accepting of themselves and others, they want to learn, they want to apply the rules. Why? Because they want to fit in and they want to have friends. You know, basic mathematics, cursive writing is kind of antiquated. Yeah, they're antagonistic. Why are they antagonistic towards the opposite sex? Because it's an area they don't really understand. Okay, this is 6 to 10. So why would you teach them sex any younger? They don't understand it. The way that they understand it is they push away from it. They make fun of the opposite sex. Didn't we all say that? You know, girls say, girls rule, boys drool, and the guys are saying, now go play with your dolls, kind of thing. Okay, same sex, okay. Yeah, gangs. So there's a double star there, so I'm going to say it, same-sex cliques or gangs, you know. Definitely they have friends that they really dig and really enjoy. Another 10 minutes, we'll take a break. Is that, what's that?
Is this PJ's or Eric's?
I'm sorry?
Whose theory is this one?
Oh, excuse me, let me go back to it. This is more of Eric Erickson, where they're learning to have industry. Oh, I went the wrong way, I'm sorry, Stephanie, it was this way. Same-sex cliques, gangs. Not gangs like, you know, Southeast LA type gangs, or the Mongrels, or, you know, the Hells Angels, not a gang like that. But, or the Sex Pistols, Sex Pistols, that's a band, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. But where they'll be like, you know, anywhere from 3 to 7 of them, that kind of, one turns, the other 6 turn. You know, they're gonna dress alike, they're gonna talk alike, they're going to, if they wanna go to Legoland, they wanna take, you know, that group with them. Okay, back to civil rivalry here. And, you know, it's natural to have it, it's gonna happen, it will lead to jealousy, you know, trauma, verbal arguments, physical fights. You know, the adults have to be the referee, absolutely. You know, teach each child, how do you counteract that? Teach each child that they need to be fair, that they could be the underdog. How would you feel if you were your brother and this guy that's 50 pounds heavier was, you know, sinking their fist into you? You know, you want to talk to them, pull them apart, you know, after things have calmed down a little bit. be there as the adult and have them talk it out. You know, set rules. You know what, you guys are gonna talk, you're gonna figure this out, no one's gonna raise their voice, and no one's gonna put up their dukes. And this is a really good time to teach. I gotta tell you, forgiveness is really a big thing packed into a small word. I know it has a lot of letters, but how to be forgiving is so important. I did not learn how to be forgiving, I'm embarrassed to say, but it's true, until probably I still struggle with forgiveness. You know, forgiveness is not forgetting, it's accepting that person in spite of this occurrence and loving them even more in spite of it. That's forgiveness. And you want to teach that at this, you know, at this age. You know, what do they want to be? They want to be the toughest. They want to be the smartest. They want to be the meanest. They want to be, you know, the superhero with, you know, every known device. And in their mind, they are. But they're in reality not. So now you've got to teach them how to forgive even themselves, because they're not who they think they are. And when they get a little older and come to realize that, you don't want them to think less of themselves. You want to edify their sense of competency. And so how do you do that? You know, all I can say is that you have to be physically around, and as these things come up, you are the voice of reason. Because you can't start when they're at 10 when they think they're a superhero. They're not going to get forgiveness. Because why? They can scale tall buildings and leap in a single bound. I mean, that's where their head's at. And so when you catch them when they're on their downside, when they're feeling low, and you are there to offer support and encouragement, then that's when they're going to trust you enough so that you can talk about forgiveness with them. And it's important to learn how to forgive other people. Why is it? Because you don't want that other person to have space in their head unnecessarily. And by teaching them to forgive other people, you in essence are teaching them how to forgive themselves, which is going to be really important for success in life. Anyone have any thoughts or, you know, remember anything of your childhood that's kind of sticking out right now? I hope that you have a lot of reflection on this lecture. Okay. Areas of concern. Okay. Yeah, that they need to learn to start to take responsibility and not shirk it. Okay? Stupid things like cleaning room is a big deal for a 10-year-old, 11-year-old. A big deal. Setting and clearing the table. How to take responsibility because you're a member of the family. Dishwashing, loading, unloading, taking trash off, walk the dog, raking leaves, watering plants. Okay. You know, sex education begins at birth. You know, we clothe our body. Socialized gender roles, you know, happens at birth through mom and dad. Peers often give inaccurate information. That's why you want to have an open pipeline. I'm saying kids, but these are going to be your clients too. If you're working in a home and you're there 5 days a week with that same group of 5 to 6 kids, you're going to be looked at as their role model, as their parent. Yeah. Age-appropriate sex education. Definitely believe in that, you know. And now think about it too, and I don't mean to get weird, but I was going to say little girl, but I'm going to rephrase it. That girl that is at a 7-year-old mental cognitive ability, guess what? She's still going to start her period. She still needs to know about it and understand it and know how to take care of it and why it's happening. at a 7-year-old level. Sounds almost impossible, but having kids, grandkids that are 7 years old, they get it, they understand. If who is ever teaching them is doing it in a very factual manner and that they know that they can trust, but I would in this area, under this example given, this is where girls need to be with girls and boys need to be with boys. You know, maybe this little girl started her period, I'm just making up a story here. This little girl starts her period and she starts to bleed and she's wearing white pants and all the boys see it. And they're reacting in horror. Well, you know, the male counselor, the male instructor wants to take the boys away, talk age appropriate, and then the female take all the girls, and in particular that girl, away and talk about starting their period, menses, and what that's all about. Okay, role play of in child development. It is 7:55. Let's take a 10-minute break. Come back at 8:05. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and send this around, and if you'll just initial it, that you've seen it, we'd like to go. I think that's cool. I'm going to put Peter for you. Peter, come Peter. Well, we're talking today about skipping.
Yeah. I don't know what's good about his. I only know based on like whatever like classes. I really honestly like this. Yeah. Yeah, and like another one. I don't know if you've seen the Carl Jung's theories.
Yes. Carl Jung is, yes. I don't know a lot, but I know some.
What I love about him is that he's really good at more simple the shadows. Yeah. So we're looking at the shadows part we don't really control. Or like the basement of our brain. That's another way you're into it.
It's interesting.
Yeah. And like the way we really
I disagree with it. I think we can control it, but we have to really be in tune with ourselves.
that's just how what's really cool is that interesting is that obviously interesting it sounds good, right? Because it's so abstract, you can't test.
We'll talk about that more too, okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so we want to talk about play in childhood. It's 8:07. Okay, so we're a little behind there. Okay, so when children are playing, what are they doing? They're mimicking. Who are they mimicking? You. Yeah.
There was that one scene from Narcos, where the kids were pretending to be like your dad and accidentally executed the thing.
Well, hey, whatever they see is what they're going to role play.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's a pretty good example.
Yeah, they're learning about their world through play. You know, when they're that little soccer field, when they're on their soccer field playing Bumblebee, you know, they're seeing themselves as a superhero, as the star. You know, they're exploring. Okay, this is where I think that it's very important. Success, we all don't have to be taught on how to handle success, right? We might have to be taught about humility and don't fan yourself too much, you know, pride cometh before the fall type of discussion. But failure, I really see more so your generation having difficulty, not necessarily you, but your generation having problems with failure. Why? I think the why is because you were all taught that you are superheroes. You were all taught that you won the game. You were all taught let's not keep score so that there are no losers, everyone's a winner. You're all taught that you are the end all. You know, that more, your parents, as a parent, I bought into it too. I'm not finding fault. It was a part of our society where, you know, we fanned our kids too much, where we cushioned them, where, you know, the term helicopter moms, you know, came out. And so we have a generation that doesn't understand failure. So what do? When they fail, they just block it out and pretend like it never happened. And they never go back to kind of self-analyze and look at it and to dissect it and to make sure it doesn't happen again. And if it does, well, then pick yourself up. We have a generation, because of this unwillingness to accept failure, that live in the joke is, you know, you have your 40-year-old living in your basement. You know, after my girls, you know, became pregnant, moved back home, kind of got things going to a good start where the child had a good foundation, they're my grandchildren, then it was like, out of here. Why? Because I wanted them to face their own failures and to figure it out and have the self-competency of success. And there's nothing wrong with failure. All of us know that, right? What is failure? Failure is success turned inside out. Once you've failed, now you just reverse it. Now you know how to succeed. It might be difficult, but at least you know what to do. So I think that failure, learning how to fail and how to show sportsmanship is so important. Not, yes, for the here and now, but more so for human growth and development later on. Yeah, definitely, you know, we all have to learn how to cooperate, right? I got to tell you, it seems weird right now to you, but everything that you're learning in this year program, and I don't care if it's this program or nursing, is going to be about 20% of what you do on the job. Is that wild? You're putting all this time and energy and effort into this. And you have to do it because you have to pass your state boards. Your state boards show a minimal level of professionalism. That's what it shows. Not professionalism, but knowledge in the field. Minimal. That other 80% is cooperation. Learning how to get along. Learning how to accept interdisciplinary roles. How to take on what they say. How to share what you know. Is that wild? That's 80% of your job. And actually, you walk in with that 80%. We might tailor it a little in clinical by saying, hey, listen, you need to be more engaging. Hey, listen, you need to, do this, that, or the other thing. But you're walking in with 80% of what you need to be successful. And hopefully, a part of that is learning how to accept your own failures, how to self-analyze, how to self-reflect, and turn it into a positive. Okay, enhance fine and large motor coordination, absolutely. Okay, infant play, okay, kind of going backwards a little bit. Usually an interaction among children, the family, and simple toys, all 5 senses are involved. Imagination, attention span 5 to 10 minutes. Solitary play is very common. It is very common in that it is the only way. Okay, then we have toddler. Okay, what are we doing here? We are comparing, contrasting. Okay, so the toddler interaction with children, family, and toys, whereas the preschooler plays directly with other children. Language becomes important to the toddler. Well, now the preschooler is using language to manage cooperation and interaction. may expand from 2 to 3 children in the classroom, where with a toddler, it's just basically the toy, the caregiver, and the kid. Okay, then parallel play is very much the way the toddler plays, versus with preschool, it becomes more interactive. Okay, school-age children. They have structured games. We all know about Foursquare, right? We all played Foursquare. Very structured. The ball was on the line. No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. Yes, it was. That everyone in line says, yes, it was, and then that kid's out. Okay, very structured, defined rules. You got to have those rules. Why? Because we all have an inherent feeling of fairness, do we not? We know when things are unfair, and none of us like it. That's why there's rules, is because we are protecting ourselves and other people from that feeling of unfairness. So we need to teach and accept losses graciously. And why are we teaching them? Not for the here and now, although it starts with the here and now, but really, they're going to be better equipped adults if they learn how to accept their losses and not blame other people for their losses. Even if it is someone else's fault, okay? You're in a situation, I can't think of one right now, but it's clearly the other person's fault. As adults, what do? We know when it's unfair. We acknowledge that in our own heads, if no place else. And then we move on, do we not? We go, I didn't like that. I had ABC involved in that. Boy, I'm going to really watch ABC next time. Okay. I am not here, but at another facility. Sounds stupid, but I brought some waters in for her. We shared an office, and I brought some waters in, and she drank the water, I drank the water, everything was fine. They were empty, and I waited, I don't know how long, a couple days, a week, thinking that she would go out and buy some water. Right? She didn't. I wanted water, so I bought water. Well, this happened the second time, and I waited a couple days, 2 or 3 weeks, and she never bought water again. Okay, well then I just realized, you know what? I'm going to bring 2 waters, put them in my little lunch pail or my backpack or what have you, and that's how I'm going to handle it. Why? Not that I couldn't afford the water, but I didn't want to be taken advantage of. And that's where I felt like that was going, and it didn't feel good to be taken advantage of, even over something stupid as water. Okay? And so as an adult, I just fixed it and went on. Still treated her the same, still shared the office with her, everything was fine. But that's why. Because growing up, all those interactions that I had that didn't feel good, and if I talked to somebody about it, then we would come to an agreement or tease it out, if you will. And so in adulthood, it was just kind of natural and normal. But if I didn't have those experiences, well then maybe I would have been like, I want to change offices and cause this big disruption within the work environment. Okay. Anticipatory guidance. Each stage of childhood issues of behavior and development arise for family members. They'll never stop. You will be 6 foot underground when they stop. You always, one thing about life is always going to be challenging. I don't care if you're rich and famous or dirt poor in poverty. It's going to be challenges. Okay, walking and talking may be earlier or later. And I do feel this way now. I didn't when I was a young mother. You know what? As long as the kid's potty trained walking down the aisle, I'm fine with it. But boy, take me back when Elizabeth was 9 months, a year, Heather, that was the foremost on my mind. Emphasize that each child is unique. Absolutely. If you can see the uniqueness in yourself and in others, you'll be a happier person. and you'll teach your children how to be happy. Maybe one child is a brainiac, and another child is super artsy. You know, embrace the differences and act accordingly. You know, like how we were talking about Legos and stuff. But, you know, I would say that you want to show the uniqueness in the child. And sometimes it's hard to figure out what is unique. Maybe the kid's so well-rounded, and maybe that becomes their uniqueness, that they're super well-rounded. The challenge of parenting is to help children develop while maintaining eagerness to learn. I would say it's challenging to grow the child without stifling their character or their inner voice. Okay, adolescence. Well, we all remember adolescence. Why do we remember adolescence? Aaron, why do you remember your adolescence? Not A, but E. Anybody, why do you remember your adolescence?
Because it was awkward.
Girls? Awkward. Did you say girls, Aaron?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, you kind of liked that girl, right? But it was like, how do I handle liking her and letting her know and not looking any less than what I want to look like? Yeah, the awkwardness of it. The wanting to go out and be cool, but realizing you had to stay home and do homework, and that's not so cool. Yeah.
How about ditching class in high school?
Yeah, yeah, we all want to do it, right? Yeah, you did it, okay. Yeah, the bummer about ditching is the same thing like here when it's not considered ditching. It's like making up all the extra work. Yeah, and then when you ditch once, it's so easy to do the second time. By the third time, you're so far behind, you don't even want to show up again, right? Yeah, we've all been there. So how did you handle ditching, Theo? Be honest. You're with good company. Oh, he's like, I did it.
I just snuck out. I didn't tell nobody.
Okay. Okay. And sometimes those things are good because there's a sense of victory to it. You know what I'm saying? That can, in and of itself, show competence. But then that behavior can lead to other things too. And you think, oh, that was a big thing. Promiscuity, there's been a lot of writing on this, didn't start in the United States until after the Civil War. Because typically people were raised and grew up within 5 miles of their birthplace in America. There wasn't even, the trains and those type of things were around. There wasn't a lot of traveling. And so people kind of knew you belonged to this mom and dad and that brother and sister. And so therefore, your boundaries were a little tighter. After the Civil War, when people went away to war and away, well then it was like, oh, sex, oh, brothel houses, oh, all of this stuff, and things got a little bit more. So, leading that double life, this is my thought on it, I'm willing to hear yours, okay? In your mind, you have like a teeter-totter, and there's 2 people on the teeter-totter. And when the teeter-totter is level, everything is fine. But once the teeter-totter gets unlevel, unbalanced, you know it, but you try to call it level. But you know it that it's not. And now you start to have like a little split in yourself. Well, when I'm at home, I have to act like it's level, but when I'm away, I get to act like I know that it's not and it's okay. And then that becomes what? You're putting so much energy into thinking that you're not doing. You're not learning. And I think that's where there's a slippery slope. Okay, so puberty. When the person becomes able to reproduce sexually, adolescence, a period between puberty and maturity. That's a tough one. Who in this room would like to go back to adolescence? Yeah? No? No? Yeah. None of us. It was too painful. Devlin, would you want to go back? A big no. Spans ages between 11 and 20. You know, honestly, I was a late bloomer. I gotta tell you, mine was not 20, it was probably a little older. I probably didn't get it together until I was about 28. You know, some people it's 35, some people it's, 17. Rapid growth spurt ending in adult height. You know, and just because you're at your adult height and weight doesn't mean that, every other part of you is. Emotional needs predominate. This is where I think a lot of us had pain. Emotional needs predominate. When you attach learning, this is science, when you attach learning with emotion, it stings and you never forget it. That's why everyone in this room remembers adolescence. Because our emotional needs predominated, and when you have those, I remember my mom saying to me, stop wearing your feelings on your sleeve, as she's whacking me across the mouth. I remember that, I was in the car, and she said, stop wearing your feelings on your sleeve. She was driving, I was next to her, and whack went her hand across my face. And you know what? That sting with what we were talking about, because I was wanting my needs above everybody else's, being, the typical, self-centered kid. Boy, I remember thinking, whoa, what do you mean don't wear your feelings on your sleeve? I'd never heard that before. And that was, boy, and then into young adulthood, boy, if you put your feelings into someone of the opposite sex and they burned you, didn't it hurt? You felt it and you didn't forget it? Okay, so that's why that time period's issues. And critical, you have to search, identity search, meaning of life, obligations, do you want to be moral, do you want to be immoral, school attendance, do you want to go, do you want to ditch? Then you throw in alcohol and drugs. Oh my gosh. What a mix. Sexual identity, experimentation, relationships, career choices, future, spouse. Oh my gosh. That's another reason why I don't want to go back. Okay, formal operations, okay? So we went from pre-operational to concrete with Piaget. Now we're at formal operations. The child is beginning to think abstractly. If I have two glasses here, one's tall and thin and one's short and stout, and they have the same amount, if Logan were here in his concrete thinking, he'd say, well, the taller one has more water. Well, then if I poured the water in each of them into an identical glass and saw that they were both the same, that would cause a lot of confusion for someone who's in concrete thinking. Now we have the ability, our brain cannot handle abstract thinking when we're young. It doesn't have life experiences, and it is so into the here and now, and only that person matters, that it can't handle it. It literally hasn't developed enough to be able to have abstract thinking. This is where you can have complex problem solving. This is where you can say to a child, well, how would you feel if you were that person? If that person treated you the way you just treated them, how would you be feeling? And they can start to take their feelings, someone else's feelings, and put them on their own and realize that what they did was not right. You can begin to talk to them. Before that, you just had to say, no hitting. If you hit, timeout. Now we can begin to talk to the child and say, well, if you got that punch, how would you be feeling? Wouldn't you be crying? And then they can start to take that on with abstract reasoning and realize that, hey, if I don't want that pain, is it really right and fair that I gave it to somebody else? This is where, if a person cannot do it, they're going to have a split. Okay? Do you begin to see how important it is to have good parenting? and to have someone there making these connections for the child so that now it will have purpose because they can abstract think. You know, you can see if a child has severe neglect that they're gonna get to this, but they're not gonna be able to make the leap to, I caused another person pain. Because they're still so self-absorbed, narcissistic, they're still so into themselves just trying to get through the day that they didn't have the backup of good parenting or someone to care enough to give them so that they could leap forward. Did that just make sense? Did it make sense? Okay, good.
Okay, but okay, I know you learned. It says at age 12, you're supposed to learn this aspect, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of times, even when it's older, it comes to a point where you can't. Some people have too much feelings. I mean, they experience too many feelings out there. And
Some of those girls.
I mean, okay,
Yeah.
maybe, but then it has to come to a point where you can't really let someone others' feelings change how you're about to
I agree
do
with that.
things. So then,
There's a maturity there,
so where does
absolutely.
that abstract thinking come into play actually when we go into that
Yeah.
after?
Yeah, and that is, even that is abstract thinking, what you just said. Look how intense that, or how deep what you just said is. And you said it in 5 sentences. You know, that shows your intelligence. That shows a lot about you that you could even verbalize that. Okay, so then if someone is unable to abstract think outside of them own selves, can you see what a problem that person's going to be for society? You put boundaries, basically what I heard you said. If someone's too emotional, you can't be so concerned with every single emotion that they're having, and so you have to put boundaries.
Basically, you can't be everything for everybody.
That's right.
So you're going to get mad at her, well, I have to do this.
Yeah.
Do this.
No, yeah, I get what you mean. It's like if, let's say if someone's having like an emotional wreck at like 2 o'clock in the morning, it's like,
I gotta go to
can you
work.
not?
Call me when it's convenient for both of us.
It's like, here's
Not
the-
just
here's
you.
the crisis line, call me first, and then I'll get you up in the morning.
Yeah.
Then we're really able.
Do me a favor and take all the knives out of your house. Okay, good. Talk to you tomorrow.
Okay, I'll scratch it in the noon, I suck in the morning.
Okay. So anyways, this is starting at 12. Okay, challenge achievement of identity, yeah. Then this is also, you have to have abstract thinking, you know, who am I? Where am I going? What do I want to do with myself? You know, why am I here? What difference does it make? You know, period of making difficult decisions. You know, school, career, college, military, sex, baby, marriage, you know. If this phase is not achieved, there's going to be role confusion. And the bummer about it is that the significant group is peers over family. So have you noticed that you will sink to the lowest common denominator? Have you noticed that? If all of your friends are doing drugs, give it time, you will too. If all of your friends are having sex, give it time, so will you. If all of your friends are, you know, throwing off the F word, just give it time, so will you. Okay? We all myself included, sink to the lowest common denominator. Okay? And so now, peers, and you've heard it, misery loves company, right? Why do you think misery loves company? Because then they don't have to face their inadequacy. If you come and you're success, that's why everyone hates going to their reunions. That's why, you know, because then you have, you know, the people who have been successful and the ones not so, but yet you all started from the same spot, graduating high school. It's weird, isn't it? Okay, but anyways, where I'm going with this is that your peers are going to, you wanna make sure for you and for me that we have our peers at a level that is high. Because we will sink to the lowest common denominator of them. Okay? Peer pressure, substance use, clothing, success, all of that stuff. I could go on. Okay, so we're talking about Erickson, you know, independence, you know, so we want to allow independence. Self-esteem, we want to recognize and accept who they are. Their devotion, fidelity they're going to learn. We're to have support decisions, create good family atmosphere, provide for privacy. Okay, now, Piaget, stage 4 is, and now we're talking about a person from 12 to 15. Now they're in formal operations. Okay, so we left operational, we're in formal operations. This is true abstract thinking. They have the skills to participate in complex problem solving. Okay, they can debate, they can compare, they can contrast, they can be creative. They can understand governments, understand decline of governments, understand why speech, why being able to have our First Amendment free speech is so important. Everyone in this room without free speech is just nothing. If you take away your free speech, then you take away your independence. If you take away your independence, now you're taking away your adulthood. Do you see how important this is? Okay, gymnastics, yeah, and then we get more into, we can have, yeah.
Sorry. to
No,
interrupt.
please.
So on the test, will you be asking us stage 4 or formal operation? Like
Formal
what-
operations, I want you to know it's stage 4.
Okay,
so-
so you want us to know both? Like
Yeah.
Stage 4 is formal
Yes,
operation?
and-
And the age level?
Yeah, definitely the age level. On this, if you know the age level, then you can put yourself back into that and pretty much answer a lot of the questions. It is 8:36. Do you guys feel like you need another break? It's only
Yes,
been,
no, thanks for coming.
yeah, we can go another 20 minutes. Okay. Yeah, okay, carpentry, auto mechanics, photography, religion, moral instruction, all of that comes with formal operation. Okay. Early adolescence, so I have a hard time saying it. Pubescence. Girls do mature faster. They may start earlier, but honestly, we all end up, I don't wanna say all, but if we have the capacity, we end up at the same spot. There's an awkward stage that is in pubescence, that we, and Erin, you mentioned it, it's learning how to be around, get along, draw attention to our sexuality with the opposite sex. We still have we have a desire for independence, but we don't have an income capability. We're taking on a self-reliance attitude, but yet we can't display it fully, right? Because if you don't have an income, you can't be self-reliant. You want approval, but you also don't want to do the work. You're kind of, you want to have it all, but you don't want any of the stuff you have to take responsibility for. You might be rebellious, then you have to deal with that. And we all have a streak of rebellion in ourselves. Were you going to say something, Devlin?
Yeah, I was gonna ask on the test, how are you gonna distinguish these, cause, right in the front, right above, looking at the point. You have stage 4 formal operations, 12
It
to
will
15.
give you key words that you're going to have to place in what area if I describe somebody and they're in pubescence, I might give you an age, and then I might say that, you know, they exhibit yelling at their parents, and then that would be an example of rebellion. Or I might say that they have their driver's license, but they've been grounded from the car. You know, shows that they can drive, but they don't have full say-so over the car.
Like around 16, 17.
Yeah, only because the ages overlap. So
They do.
15 or 11 or 14.
So you would have to take more of your words, you would have to take keywords out of the question to know which way it was slanted. Yeah, Karen?
Could you give us an example?
I'll find one, okay? I'll find one and give you an example. Any other questions? George, did you have anything? Okay, yeah, you know, this is, how cool is it that in our own growth, we become critical of our family? Don't you think that's good? I think it's good. You know, that you might think that your father was too much of a pushover, or your father wasn't there. And then you think, you know what, I don't want to have that in my family. That's a good thing. I think that's a very good thing. Now you are beginning to have a point of comparison. Why? Because you've been around a lot of other kids. And you kind of see that kid, their family, you know you and your family. And now you are able to abstract, with abstract thinking, bring that to a full thought. Okay, early adolescence. Okay, so here we're still at 11 to 14. Reasoning, reflection. Reflection is such a great way of learning. You know, I hope that you all self-reflect on yourself. You know, whether it's while you're driving or in the shower or in your prayer life or whatever, that you self-reflect. You know, look at, you know, where you are, how you got here, where you want to be, where you want to go, and what is it going to take to get there, and how can you use the benefits of where you are in your past to get there. Self-reflection. You're in a room with a client, and the client says something weird to you. You feel that there's weirdness going on, but you've got to get on with your job and pass the meds. Well, in the you know what, driving home, reflect back on that. What other cues were there? If I think this was nefarious, what other cues were there? Okay, O'Neill, set them up. Like what you did. Perfect. And then you can get more insight into what they're thinking, what they're doing. Long periods of time in front of the mirror. We've all been there. Tendencies towards secluded and moodiness. We've all been with moodiness, right? One moment we're rocking out, and the next moment, you know, we hear a sad song, we put ourselves into losing the boy, and we start crying. You know, are we on drugs? No, we're just being moody. You know, talking, verbalizing, strong need to return to nest for guidance. Patience, sense of humor, social supervision. Okay, now we're in middle adolescence, okay? 15 to 17. You're beginning to pull away from childhood, more introspective, okay? Introspection comes with self-reflection. Changes in self-assurance, balancing security with independence. You know, vague ideas about, you know, our career, vague ideas about, well, maybe not vague ideas about dating, but, you know, all you need to do is go out with one turd and you know you never want another one, right? And so now you've been out with the turd, you saw how they manage themselves and you, and so does that not become a good standard of comparison for the next guy or next girl you're gonna pick for, you know, asking to go out or choosing to go out? You do make a statement through clothing, through hair, through nails, through everything. Interested in opposite sex, so you'll have better hygiene. And that's part of being in front of the mirror so much. Okay, late adolescence, 18 to 20, interesting that they didn't say 18 to 19, but they actually went into the 20s. You know, graduation, moving away from home, changing friends, interest, you're more mature, more social, you can behave professionally when you don't want to, you know that you have to, so you do. You know, question previously accepted values. Now you're questioning them and realizing that there are other ways. You know, dating, long-term relationships, family. Okay, 90% of adult height, extremities lengthen, all permanent teeth except for wisdom. Wisdom teeth usually come in around 25, 27. Consume large amounts of food, definitely, metabolizing quicker. This will come into play when you medicate. I think we talked about it when we talked about narcotics, but when you medicate someone who is in fast metabolism, you need to medicate them more often, okay, because they're going to metabolize that drug as quickly as they do the food. At 18 years, full size and height, genitalia, secondary sex characteristics, hormonally, I mean, everything is there. Boys, testicles and penis enlarge, there's scrotal changes, their scrotum becomes more pendulous, where women, their breasts will become more pendulous, around 20. Chin and pubic hair, voice deepens, spontaneous erections, ejaculations, those are normal, okay? What do they say that, someone look this up so that I get it right, okay? But a man at this age will have a sexual thought like 4 times a minute, okay, about every 15 seconds. They see that men are attracted visually, so if they see a girl that is very attractive to them, if they see, something low cut or, or a walk or something, then they'll, go to it's just a nanosecond, but they'll go to that sexual thought. Women, not so much. Women, remember, they're talkers. So a man, if he wants to make time with a woman, has to be a good listener. Okay, that's hard. That's hard. Okay, by 16, most are at their adult height. Okay, girls. Okay, now look at this. At 11 years old, girls are approaching sexual maturity. It's not unusual for a girl to start her menses at age 10, 9. Okay. Some can be late bloomers and be 17, 18, that's a gap. But you can see where, okay, by 13, they can start that's kind of the middle age is 13. But girls can be, like I said, 9 or 10. Factors that most influence attitude about menstruation is attitude of mother. Okay, confusing time, they're having crushes, may participate in homosexual activity, may be permanent. Gays, lesbian often realize identities as teens. 30% of youth suicides are homosexually related. Every year, 30% of suicides. That's a big number. Our sexual identity is such a large part of who we are. That who we are, why are we here, that needs to get established. Actually, it begins establishing itself probably, I would say, by 3-4 years old. And all that role playing the child did, that is reinforcing that. And it's so important to know who you are, because why? Then you don't have to spend your young adulthood figuring it out. This is valuable time right here, is it not? You guys obviously want to get through this course so that you can start earning some money so that you can be adults. Well, what happens if you're in this trying to figure out who you are? Well, yeah, you will figure a little bit about that, but what happens if it's the big questions that should have been resolved by 5, 6, 7? Okay, sexual activity at younger age is increasing. And honestly, and this is a Kimism, okay, this is not science, but that's unfortunate that that is happening, that sexual activity at a younger age. I think when it happens at too young, then the relationships get skewed, and you don't learn how to solve that, how to interact with the opposite sex without bringing sex into it. Did that make sense, Aaron? Did I just make sense?
I mean, yeah, but that's the whole point of talking to the opposite sex. I'm not
Okay.
just talking just to talk.
Okay. And from a man's perspective, that's exactly right.
Well, back then at least, change.
Yeah. Okay.
Be intentional about how you move, right? With a goal in mind. Besides that, there's nothing to talk about. I talked to my regular friends, and, you know what I mean, about football and stuff, but I'm talking to a girl most of the time, it's because of that.
Okay, and that's fair, and that's the way that it should be. But then if she lessens the guard and you go in for it, well then the next girl that you talk to, you're gonna use the same approach, and that's what you're gonna want it right away. And then when you absolutely get married and you have to talk, because you've got kids, you've got mortgages, you've got cars, you've got a lot more at stake, then you didn't learn really how to do it. When I say do it, I mean talk.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
problem solve.
I just, you know.
Yeah, not you,
I know, I
but just
said
in
you
general,
talk,
I'm
yeah.
talking about
I
that.
don't even really listen too much.
This is, and thank you for your honesty, and what we say here stays here, does it not? But by listening, it's painful, it's hard on men to listen to us. You know, okay, let's talk about it this way, now let's talk about it this way, now let's talk about it this way, now, you know, and the guy already has it solved, you know, it's a third with water. But by learning how to go there, and by not engaging in sexual activity too quick and learning how to go there, that small talk and listening is developed to such a degree that it makes for a lasting relationship that will actually bring you joy. And that's what we want. I mean, there's joy in sex too, I'm not saying there's not, but there's also joy in other things that if you have a good foundation, then that internal joy is exciting to have. It adds value to living. Okay, now that I have dug my own hole, let's go on. Okay, family relationships. Yes, they're delicate throughout adolescence. We all know that. We've already talked about sibling and how that rivalry has already been set up and is pretty much going to last the whole life. Critical versus loving, solid family relationships influence lifetime because they foster self-esteem and respect. Absolutely. You know, nothing makes me feel more, and trust me, there's a lot on the other side, but one thing that Brooke has said, she's been through 2 relationships, and she has said a couple times, not frequently, but she has said, you know, I just want a relationship like you and Dad. And that makes me feel like, wow, that is so cool. You know, that I have been able to role model that to her. And well anyways, okay, so issues, self-assertion, privacy, information, acceptance, experimentation, and growth definitely are a part of developing. I would say it's a weird thing. We start with our family, then we go into the school age, and definitely by adolescence, peers are the big driver. Then we go into our relationship, and that is like the biggest driver. But then when kids start coming into the relationship, girls want their mother. And then it starts going back to the birth family. Social activities with same select groups, yeah, we all seek. And that, I was gonna say we all seek likeness. But I don't wanna say that to this group because I don't think, normally I would just say that, but because there's so much white noise going on in society, I feel like I have to clarify that. We all seek likeness. But I mean, when I say that, I mean philosophical likeness. We all want to be with people that have the same ideas as us. Not the same color, not the same sexual orientation, not the same any of that. We seek out likeness. Why? Because we want to be able to talk and discuss ideas and refine them. And if we start with someone who has a similar likeness with philosophy, then the growth that takes place in us is exponential. Have you noticed that? When you align philosophically with somebody and you start to talk and tease out ideas that both of you maybe don't have resolution on, but you're doing it together, the conversation just goes up like this. But if you are talking with someone who is not of like-mindedness with you, and I'm talking philosophically here, then it just kind of stays here, and it actually begins to just break off into nothing. That's the cool thing. I have a lot of close friends, but I don't see them very often. But when I do see them, because we left and we were talking up here, we just pick up from there and continue on. And it's wonderful to have that. And how do you have that? Well, you get it through, refining yourself by self-reflection, by looking at yourself and saying, what is the person I want to be? And then you start, isn't it funny in AA, what do they say, fake it till you make it? That's been most of my life. I want to be like that person, I'll say to myself. I like the way she handled that. I don't handle it. I'm a Karen, okay? What can I say? But I don't like that about me. I don't want to be that person. And so then I start acting like I am that person, and then I'm faking it until I make it. I didn't have that role model to me. I didn't really have a lot of that. Do you see where I'm going with this? I don't know. I just think that life has been set up really cool in that we get to, and I'm going to say it again, parent ourselves. Okay. School, we all know about cliques. We all know, who the in group was, and friendships are important. They're important emotional preparation for more intimate and romantic relationships. I would agree with that. Okay, dating becomes an issue, kind of starts as large groups, going to a mall, and they're going to break off. Older adolescents pair off into couples. You have your first steady relationship where now it's exclusive. You're only going to date me. I'm only going to date you. The first love comes with complicated feelings, right? How do you bring this person into your life, but yet you're still an individual? That takes a lot of mastery. Breaking up is hard to do. What we used to say in the sorority house, though, is that it shouldn't be hard. Why? How do you solve a hurting heart? You go out and find another guy. That's how you solve it. And that's what we said, and that's what we all did. Okay? With some reflection, though, I will add that. Okay, peer pressure and risk-taking. Okay, we've all, I define peer pressure and risk-taking done to define identity. Okay, you feel if you want to be in that group, well, then you have to play hooky, or you have to smoke the joint, or you have to, look at the Playboy, or whatever it is. If you want to be a part of that group, you have to submit to that peer pressure. Non-compliance with medication, truancy, promiscuity, racing, drinking, drug use, vulnerable to unsafe, definitely. unsafe situations related to lack of knowledge regarding the consequences. Or a feeling that they are so invincible that they will not have to succumb to the consequences. And that is a large problem with our adolescent age group, is that they feel so invincible that they don't think that something could go wrong because they're so invincible. You know, if I go 150 miles an hour, well, I can do it because I'm me and I'm invincible. Or, you know, I can jump in and out of bed without a condom. Well, I can do it because I'm me, I'm invincible, you know. And that type of thinking is very prevalent in adolescence, and as a result ends up in a lot of problems. And so we need to be aware of that. Okay, so it is 9 o'clock. Let's come back at 9:15. I'll take a 15-minute break. And we are pretty close to being done here.
Your backpack's cute. I like the color. Cute and it lasts for years. The last string.
Okay, Karen, I'm looking for a test question.
Okay. It's just because I was looking at the study guide. I was wondering if me and because we kind of did the study guide, but we kind of confused like we did.
Okay.
So like there was like one question that was like, look at the CPR manual.
Oh, okay.
And I'm like,
What's a CPR?
yeah.
Okay, I get it.
Okay.
Just disregard it,
Okay.
is what I would say up front.
Okay.
Don't
Yeah.
answer
So
that question.
yeah, I'll bring up my laptop after class and then me and Betty.
A lot of these questions, as I'm looking at it, according to Eric's, I'm gonna bring this up as we're all here, but Eric's theory of psychosocial, what occurs in a child's life during this stage, anatomy versus shame and doubt. So you need to know the age, you need to know the sequencing of that. That was your question, do we need to know that 4 equals this? Yeah, you do, because then it will help you answer the question. I'm looking at another one. Trying to find one more that. You know, the last 5 questions that I asked, it's like, what happens in that stage? And you have to identify. I'm trying to, okay. A mother asked the site tech, phobias and nightmares are common in which age group?
So it'll be like off the power.
She was
Oh,
busy.
yeah, everything, all
What?
testing. Have you noticed that is on?
I don't never buy gum. Sorry.
I couldn't find
Because I don't like it where I chew it and then the flavor goes away really quickly. I hate it. Because I don't buy gum.
We're good.
Sorry, man.
So that is okay, but go back to your book. Go back to your book. If you can't find it in the PowerPoint, go to the book.
Yeah, so that's what I'm trying to figure out, like how I should study, like, because I'm not finding something in the study guide.
I feel like the book has a lot of answers into it because I read it 2 days ago, or probably yesterday, and some like a lot of the answers are like related to the story.
Okay.
Okay, so just study off this way.
Yeah, I'm gonna say what this, what I'm thinking here, and I don't know if I'm right, but what I'm thinking is that you wanna see a direct, the study guide to the PowerPoint. It is not direct.
Okay, yeah, because I
You
would
have to read it and think of situations and circumstances that is making the PowerPoint right, and see and understanding it from that perspective, and then go to the study.
Yeah, because what I'm thinking, it's like, it says like, oh, you know, ask the questions, and it says it should be answered in lecture, like in little quotations, but it's not on the PowerPoint. So that's where I'm kind of like,
It's not gonna be verbatim on the PowerPoint. It's, you're gonna have to take the PowerPoint, and that is why I try to give stories. That is why I try to give circumstances, so that you can interpret it, not as the words on the PowerPoint, but on applying it to a situation.
That makes sense.
You know, that reflection, so, yeah, so we start reflecting in abstract thinking. So how do you reflect right now?
Like as my age group.
Yeah, like right now. I mean, I've heard you reflect a lot. I've heard you say things like, oh, you know, I'm living with this guy, and you know, my parents don't like it, but so you reflected right there. You know, you love him, you want this relationship to go forward. You know, your parents have different values. You reflected on, do you see what I'm saying? And so, I mean, I've seen that in you. I've seen you, another thing you said to me, you said, well, you know, he has his master's degree and I want to have something comparable. That's a reflection. You know, that's like, okay, he has it, I am comparing that with me and I want that.
Yeah. Like when you're talking about sibling rivalry, like I feel like I broke my boyfriend, like, cause we don't make home when I'm going to school.
Yeah.
Sorry for that.
Yeah, but no, it's true, it is true.
Cause with my, like, you know, I told you, like, with my brothers, I'm like, I don't really have that rivalry, cause I feel like we're all same level, and I'm trying to push my little brother right now to get into psych tech. I'm like, you should do it, I'm having so much fun, it's such a good career path, cause he has all his science classes. As he told me recently, he wants to go nursing, and I'm like, letting you know right now, I didn't get into an RM program right away, so you should do psych tech while you're, you know, working as psych tech, and then do nursing. So I'm trying to push him right now, because I'm like, I want all of us to be at the same level. Like, it's not really, I want to, it's more with my boyfriend. I want to, like, make more money than him.
Well, like I see it with your brothers, civil rivalry, where your mom always calls you, make this airline ticket for us, do this for us, and you're like, well, why can't they? You know, that is a form of, you know, like hold them accountable. Why am I you know, so when you see it like that, okay, so when did that start? That started in preschool. That started when you came home from the or when they brought them home from the hospital. You know, do you see what I'm saying? So if a question is in that context, then you would answer it, you know, when does it start? Right away? Okay, then so what are, a question might be, what are signs and symptoms of civil rivalry? How does it benefit? How has it benefited you? You are so mature and responsible. That's how it's benefited you. But on the downside, you know, your brothers are skipping through the field. You know what I'm saying?
I remember JJ, my older brother that has the problem, when I brought Haley to nursing.
What a pretty name, Haley.
Like walk around her like he hated her, like seeing her, like what is that thing, you know, like that, he would go around,
Like disgusted almost?
yeah, he would not get close to her, he would just, and then every time she would cry, he would just cover, and I don't know, maybe it's just the way he was, even as much as I tried to, he just couldn't.
Okay, that was me too. My mom said I tried to tell my mom that he was crying and like they would fill up all over him, and she's like he was crying so loud, and then it just stopped. And she's like, I was so curious, and then I just see like the pillow that you had on your princess pillow on his face.
Yeah.
And I mean, I was like 2.5 years
Right,
old,
you
so I
didn't
didn't know.
Yeah,
I was like, shut up.
Right, exactly.
And now I'm like, come on, let's be psychics together, you know. So I'm like, sorry, I'll let you ask your question.
But it's interesting, you know, when you personalize it like that, you know? I mean, yeah, that sounds horrible, but it doesn't sound any more horrible than the stories I tell.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But yet, you know, even though these things did take place, we all lived in the same house, we all got along, we all made it work somehow. But I will say, we all grew up to be very different adults. Very different adults.
And you know, I've been talking about the
So in the middle of it.
But I noticed that, you know, I was 4 or 7, and my daughter started at 7, my sister started at 8. But you know what, I noticed that it's 12 versus 1, and I still didn't touch this. What'd you do? I started getting how she showed me how actually to wear it a few days and so it was not really like with my daughter. As soon as she kind of really started to understand that, so it's just at this age, you might start. So when she hit maybe 6, around that, I'm curious to make her so she already knew what and she knows.
That's good. Because I didn't learn from my mom.
Say things like, you know, Grandma, do you think I'm developing? You know, I think I'm gonna be an early bloomer. What do you think? When do you think I'm gonna start my period? You know, I show her. She's very.
Yeah.
This is an area of weakness in my life. I was not good at this. And I did not really openly, I didn't hide anything. But I wasn't real open with shopping either. And I wish that I would have been more like you. How friends go by years old and
So maybe that's why.
now what's Haley do? Oh, because she said you was and she sees you. You know, how many women go back to school? Yeah. After having a family, definitely smaller. And look at you.
Think on this is where think on this part.
It's a first for you, you know what I'm saying? And with the second one, it's more natural, so you don't have to put the attention on you for them.
I love learning from her.
Consistent marketing. Yeah. Abby was your first.
Actually, no, the last one.
Oh, he's the last one. Okay. So Manny is your first one, Haley, and then Kate.
Katie.
Kate. How do you spell that? Okay, Kate. Okay. That's it. Now, where did you come up with that name? I've never heard the name Kate.
But you know what? Being here,
Oh, you're 25. That's good. You're next. Oh, the one
So, shoot, I forgot to do the spike parts. Oh, you'll find out. Okay, you see how it's spiky? I didn't really. Yeah, but I don't really.
Okay, it is 9:16, we're supposed to be back at 9:15, so I'm gonna start. Okay, so the psychosocial development. Okay, so how can families help? Okay, we're gonna go ahead and start, you guys. And we're getting to 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Okay, we have about less than 15 more slides, okay? So hang in there, we're almost there. We're gonna get out early, obviously. Okay, so how can families help? Okay, they can model safe habits. You do not want to take on risky behaviors around your kids. Okay, model safe habits. So what could a safe habit be? Not drinking into oblivion, right? That's modeling safe behavior. Respecting alcohol, that would be modeling safe behavior. Set limits, you know, if you drink, well then maybe just have one drink or wait until the kids are in bed. Promote a safe home environment. You know, that's again role modeling, right? A safe environment. Assist adolescent find alternative recreation and relationships. Okay, maybe, you know, your son or daughter is, maybe you know they're engaging in sex. Okay, so how are you going to handle that? Well, you're going to say, okay, maybe we need to. I have had so many of Wayne's friends have this conversation with their wife, and they're talking to Wayne and I. Well, honey, I don't mind if you work, but if you're not home by 3 o'clock when the kids are, then I'm going to quit my job and find a job so that I can be home. Because I want to be home with the kids. I just feel like when they come home from school, Wayne must have like 10 friends that have had this conversation. When they come home from school, it's important that they get off at that moment, get off their chest what happened that day. And I either want you or me there. And if you're not going to give up your job, or if you can't be home, that's fine. Then I'm going to get another job where I can be. And if it pays less, so be it. And I'm like, wow, that is so cool. Okay, what is that? Okay, so maybe we all know, I mean, it's a science fact that most teenager pregnancies occur between 3 and 5. Okay, look at you're putting that. If there's alcohol in the home, then you're there and you can see what's going on. If they don't show up, you know to go out and try to find them or figure out, or at least be a little suspicious when they get home so you can figure out what's going, or have your antennas up. Okay, inform about hazards of risk taking. You know, well, it's fun to, you know, pop wheelies. It's fun to do this or do that. You know, talk about, well, you know what? That it is fun, absolutely. But you know what? Let's have fun with the helmet on. You know, and talk about, you know, a kid that is brain dead or that snapped his spinal cord or something went wrong, so that you can, you know, talk about it and start talking about consequences. Maybe they're not that extreme. Maybe they're a little less. Maybe, you know, you talk about your kid, well, you know, you can choose not to do homework, and that is a choice. But then what about your study skills? You know, when you really need them, you haven't had time to develop them. So now you have to study. There is a, you know, a goal that you're not going to be able to accomplish because you didn't sit and learn how to study now. I can't tell you how many times I had that conversation. You know, Brooke, I used to sit down with her a lot. Bless her heart, she had a hard time learning. And I would say, Brooke, anything you learn now, you don't have to learn later. And look, if you learn it now, then your opportunity for having a better job is going to be there. And if you get a better job, you're going to have a little bit more disposable income to enjoy life with. You know, have these conversations with her at 10 and 11. Those type of conversations you may think sound weird. Honestly, some of the conversations that I have with you, I think sound weird. And then I can only hope that some of you have taken them to heart and sensed my honesty, and that this is where it will end up, or this is where it's going to happen. Yeah, Devlin?
This is kind of, what you're talking about now, but you mentioned the other before break. You said, I think maybe your daughter you said, oh, I would like to have a relationship like
Yeah.
how you and.
Yeah, she's gone through 2 crappy relationships, and she said that. She goes, I want to find a guy like Dad. It's not her biological dad, but like Dad, like what you guys have. And that's what she said to me. And I was like, oh my gosh, how cool is that? I didn't even think I was role modeling that, to be totally honest with you. But I didn't mean to stifle you. I'm sorry, Devlin.
Oh, no, you're fine. But no, do you think that's actually attainable now, only because with the current climate, how things are, how dating is now, than how
You know.
back then, how you were saying how we like to find light, I noticed in my own life, like, okay, not that I'm better than anybody else, but, okay, at my job, like, it's very mundane and very just regular, like, I'm cool with everyone there, the conversation only goes up to here. But versus when I'm in, like, educational environment around people who are in school and stuff, my conversation go this much higher and stuff like that.
That is that philosophical alignment that I'm talking about. It has nothing to do, you guys, in our environment right now, we're led to believe that it's about color, that it's about gender, or lack of, or whatever. It's not. It's all about philosophical alignment. That was a good example of it. At work, he's here, but boy, when he gets to school, he gets to have increased, meaningful conversations. Thank you. That was a learning moment that I couldn't let slide.
But then you said how the generation, right, the gap, how your generation was like this versus how us now, millennials and everything like that after yours is different. That's because we learned who raised us, which is maybe your generation.
Yeah.
So if we fail, it's not all our fault. It has part to do with the generation before us that raised us. So I'm just saying, is that even attainable to find certain stuff like that? I mean,
This is another learning moment that I can't let slip, okay? If you fail, your generation, millennials, have been taught that it's because you were failed. And you know what? I'll agree with that. But you know what? There's a part of me that won't agree with it because you know what? You're your own agency. You're an independent, autonomous person. And I should be, honestly, if we were gonna talk about that, I should be a drunk whore. Because that's the way I was raised. Okay? But you know what? At 8 years old, I remember thinking, I hate coming home to that smell of alcohol, that stench in the room. At 8 years old, I remember thinking that, and I thought, I'm never gonna have that for my family. Wayne drank, oh, go ahead.
You know, I was just thinking like, in most of the cases in my life, I see it work the opposite. Like the people who had the worst circumstances, like,
Yeah.
and we grew up in like, our dads weren't around, crack epidemic was running rampant and stuff, and all the people who had to deal with that ended up doing all right. And they seemed like the ones that had good family structure probably went the opposite way. I mean, probably later in life, like earlier, we were probably messing up more, but you know, you see you want something different, you know, you just use the bad examples as what not to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I do know what
Yeah.
you mean. And a lot of sitcoms have been based on what you're talking about. Michael Fox, when he was in that, you're probably too young, but he was in a sitcom where his parents were hippies. And then he was Mr. Wall Street in high school. And it was showing the dichotomy of the generations. Yeah, I agree, I do agree with that. But I want to, Devlin, and I agree that, but you can't blame your parents, because if you blame your parents, you're gonna get caught in the moment. If you get caught in the moment, you're never gonna advance. And what a shame not to capture everything life has waiting for you. You know what I'm saying? If you're caught in the moment. You wanna be more than the moment. You wanna get out there and do all of these things. But I do agree with you on another point, and that was that we've talked about this before, that you are bound by your culture, and is not the age period you were born into a part of your culture. It's like your eye color. It is hard to get out of it. But this is the cool thing about learning. And I don't mean this is good. I mean, academic learning is good. But I'm talking about you learning on your own. You self-reflecting, you looking up on Google, you looking at other people's lives and having conversations with them that elevate you. When you do that, then you are in a situation where you're seeing a paradigm. You're seeing life as this, and now you're seeing life as this. And that's what education does. Now, if you flip back over and do this, you're going to be comfortable, but you're going to live in guilt. And it's going to eat at you. Because you've already had this paradigm and had a taste of it. And that's what that's why they say education is the great equalizer. Why? Because the people you work with, honest to God, they are not going to care about anything about you but what you bring to the table. And if you are bringing good, solid evidence and ideas, you're going to take off. And if you don't get involved in the day-to-day minutia of, who's eating in the lunchroom and blah, 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 that stuff, then you're going to be fine. I got to tell you, I really like being 63. From about my 50s on, I hated my 20s. My 30s, I lived through them. My 40s were pretty good. But I like being a woman that doesn't have, like, the sexual immaturity or insecurities is probably a better word that I once had that I don't have now. I like being a woman that makes my own money and gets to determine. I don't spend it. I'm not self-absorbed. I don't want to be that person. I want to see my grandkids be the best they can be. I kind of feel like I failed with my kids, you know. I really want to try to do it with my grandchildren. That might get back to what you were talking about, that generation thing. But anyways, let's finish this. Thank you, Devlin. That was cool. Yeah, George.
Saying about that family structure, maybe it's not necessarily the family structure, but more about how the kids are being treated or raised in that family structure. Like just because the parents have really good income or like say upper middle class doesn't necessarily mean that the kids are getting what they actually need, you know? Like say like the parents have to constantly work, then that means that they're more likely to neglect their child.
I mean, but what's worse, the parents working all the time or the parents not being there or smoking crack. I mean, you know what I mean?
I don't think it's about, I don't think it's a
big
matter about
difference.
which is worse. It's more of a matter of how do we tackle those situations.
In both of those situations, okay, the parents are working, the parents are strung out. The parents working are telling the kids, you're not important or as important as work, and you're not as important as a crack. So the message,
I feel like they both lead to the same message, which is
yeah, I would agree with that, but yet, you know, as a kid that can think, I would obviously want to be in that situation better than, you know, where the parents were strung out. I would rather, but, you know, I don't know, life is interesting, and then you add the dimension, and I'm doing this to pull us back, so that's interesting enough with us who have the ability to abstract think. What about with a DD kid that doesn't have that ability? You know, whoa. You know, it's like, wow. What did you say, Devlin?
Oh, no. I was saying basically the answer is we all need therapy.
Yeah. I don't know, I think that way, and it just kind of blows my mind. And then too, like I think, and I love your honesty, Erin. I just love it. I just think it's so cool. And you do bring up a lot of good dichotomies, you know what I'm saying, that aren't answered by how we're speaking right now. And all I can say is I know that every person in this room is smart enough to figure out what needs to be done. I just know that. But anyways, I do want to finish this, so we're going to get back, okay? Okay, so, but that's where we kind of got how families, you know, and even this conversation would be cool in a family setting, would it not? You know, to talk about alternatives and recreation and safety in the home and, you know, and then I want to, right here, make the teen part of the solution. I would say, even if you have to contract with them, you know, say something like, you know, if you do X, Y, and Z, and you live up to your end of the bargain, then I'll do A, B, and C. Make a contract, and that would be really good with the kids that you work with too, especially teens. Because don't we all want to kind of elevate ourselves when someone calls us out? Don't we want to make it? Okay, so food and eating habits. Okay, well, okay, special nutritional needs are optimum. We know that for health. Tendency, empty calories, right? A lot of high-fat food. High-fat food doesn't have, it has fats. We do need fats. That's 15% of our diet, should be in a healthy diet. But if it starts to tip the scales, that's not a good thing. Increased problem with obesity in our generation, or, you know, we've all seen that little 8-year-old that is 100 pounds. It leads to fatigue, unhealthy appearance, increased susceptibility. 60%, this is science, 60% of all diseases are from not maintaining a healthy body weight, smoking in excess, and drinking in excess. 60% of all diseases are from those three things. Boys, excessive protein drinks, absolutely. We've talked about Gatorade and how it's just loaded with sugar. You know, you start getting to 13 grams of sugar in 1 8-ounce drink, that's a lot. That is almost, it's not quite, but it's almost the same as 35 teaspoons of sugar. girls anorexic, bulimic, and they want to be, Miss Perfect. Okay, adolescent concerns. We want to role model healthy habits to them. Give them safety. It's a lot easier now that kids have had to be strapped in with car seats, bikes. Now they have to wear a helmet. We definitely want to have, I'm not saying be overboard, but definitely you want to be scholastically inclined. Why? Because it helps get into college, or it helps the ability, the better you do math, the more abstract thinking you're capable of. Okay? I used to tell my nursing students, I'm not with you guys in clinical, I was with them, and I would say, you know what, if you can't pass this at 90%, you're not passing meds. And they would say, well, it's all in unit dosage, what's the deal? And I would say to them, because I don't trust your thinking. You can't abstract think enough if you can't do the math. And if you can't do the math, then I know that you're not taking things to the nth degree and finishing with the solution. And if I don't know that about you, I'm not going to risk what I've developed on you. Okay, development of respect for self and others, absolutely. If you don't respect yourself, you're not going to respect other people, and vice versa. Sex and sexuality, taking responsibility, substance abuse, and related problems. Okay, early and middle adulthood. Okay, so that's where most of you are at. The process of growth and development is a continuum. I think we all know that. Havinghurst's task, okay, now Havinghurst is another theorist that we're introducing. And Erickson's psychosocial theory can be applied to adults. Okay, theory specific to adult growth and development. Okay, Levison is another one who is a theorist. Individual life structure. Then we have Sheely, the phases of adulthood. Okay, our class, yes, we are going to touch on those briefly with the reading, but we are mainly concerned with Erickson. Okay, so now early adulthood is intimacy versus isolation. Okay, now we've got to learn how to be intimate, and if you don't learn how to be intimate, you're going to be isolated. Okay, you're going to have, those are the two polar conflicts that need to be resolved. Okay, so what happens, and I think where you were going, Devlin, is that you were saying that at work, because as young adults, where do you really meet people? Where? Yeah, and then at work, you don't really, there's a lot of nepotism type laws, and you don't want to date someone at work, because then if you break up and it gets, messy, then you bring it into the job, and okay. Would I go online to meet someone? I've never been totally comfortable with a computer, so I wouldn't. We've all heard the horror stories. But you know what? I would put myself out there. I would, there's a 40-year-old plus, and we signed her, we made a contract with her to sell our cabin, okay? So now it's on the market. Okay, so she's about 40. I said 40. My husband thinks she's about 50. She was telling us that she recently divorced her husband. I happened to meet her husband long ago when I was thinking about selling the cabin, whatever. But anyway, so I know that he was about 10, 15 years older than her. So they have 2 kids. Both of their kids are in college now. And so she's kind of getting out there. And she is going to a roller skating class, and she's going to meet people. That sounds stupid. Doesn't it kind of sound stupid? But you know what? If she meets somebody, that's cool. She is also in a softball league. Yeah, 45-ish. Between 40 and 50. She's in a softball league so she can meet people. I would venture to say, if you really want to have philosophical alignment, then go to your church or temple or synagogue or whatever else it's called. That would be a place. I would say in the grocery store. You can make eyes, with eyes at someone, not sexual eyes, but like where you can stop and talk with them.
Not every grocery store, you gotta take certain.
You said not integrity, you know?
Oh, okay, maybe not. Where I was going with that is that you need to take advantage of every opportunity, because and also, I know, and it was interesting to me when Ellie made the comment, and I don't know if it was to you guys or the class before, but it was class before you guys. And she was talking about we asked the class, what do you want to get out of this? And so they were, each person said, and then one of the students, and I remember him succinctly, that's why I know it's not this class, but he turned it, and he said, well, what did you get out of it? What did you get? What did you get? And Ellie, I thought it was really, and she said it to everyone, please keep this, what we say stays here, because I don't know that she would want me to say this, although she said it to a crowd, so I feel comfortable. She said, I dated a guy when we were in psych tech school, and it didn't work out, and I wish that I hadn't. So I learned what I don't want from a guy when I was in. And I thought, wow, that's a situation where maybe it didn't work out, but valuable information was gotten from it. So I would say definitely school, although now you're in with people who are married with kids, but I would say school would be one. Where else? Someone tell me where you could meet people. Online? Okay.
Through friends.
Through friends? Okay, yeah, I would say through friends, putting it out there that you're open and available, but that if it doesn't happen, you're fine with that too.
The mall.
Gym? Okay.
I'll help.
After work, is that what you said? Okay, so anyways, so middle adulthood now. Okay, so intimacy versus isolation. So you're going to have to, we've already talked about these choices that you're going to have to make. And I would say that probably if these aren't enough right here, then finding a mate that's a decent person is probably the biggest milestone in early adulthood. And I do think you're throwing the craps in a lot of cases. Middle adulthood, okay, generativity versus stagnation. Okay, so who identifies as a middle adult person? Please raise your hand. Okay. Aaron. Okay, yeah, Theo. Let's start with you, Theo. What got you here? What got you sitting in that chair in this classroom?
You wanna better yourself?
Yeah.
What got you here?
Money.
Okay. Verna, what got you here?
Stability.
Pardon?
Stability in terms of job.
Okay. So advancement in job. Okay, does that all not have to do with retirement? And look at it right there. That's when I started. I was a little younger only because my dad used to harass me about my retirement. So I started it earlier, but yeah, definitely. By 35, you want to, I'd say 40 at the latest. If it's later, everyone's trajectory is fine, but you want to be thinking about that. And we've already said in this class, right? These people are thinking about their old age now, this middle adulthood. And we've already established it's a bummer to grow old, right? It's a bummer. You need a hearing aid, you put on weight easier, you're not as limber, if you're a guy, you have to pee more. It's a bummer. But it's a bigger bummer to grow old without money. Okay. Body processes change, I just stated those. Pass on learning, this is kind of, that can really be a big driving force. Okay, early adulthood is 20 to 40. Middle adulthood is 40 to 65. Oh, so I'm still in middle adulthood. I feel better. So it does make sense that, remember how I tell you guys, you're stuck with me. I hate to say it, I know I'm weird, but I'm willing to be weird because I have such a strong desire in this area. And I think most of my age group does. Okay, so relationships are the big thing, right? Because you don't want to have isolation. Self-awareness, well, you, when you're thinking of retirement, you are very self-aware. You know, I'm going to be living, and I can't live without money. That's pretty self-aware. Career choices, personal fulfillment in adulthood. You know, learning to live and work with others. You know, everything that we learned in kindergarten, we continue to apply it. And then up here, have I not stood in front of you and said, I'm a little worried about retirement? Because I don't know, I'm not like a hobby kind of gal. You know, I'm like, pull up a book, sit down, let's talk, you know, let's join a book club. That would be another good place to meet people too, book clubs. But anyways, and assist, okay, I was a part of that until my dad passed away. Well, actually until about 5 years after my dad passed away. It's tough to be that sandwich generation. You've got kids at home and you're caring for your parents. Okay, adult growth and development theories. Okay, now we're going to get a little bit into these people. Levison breaks it up as individual life structure, where Shealy does phases of adulthood, very similar to Erickson. Levinson, self, values, social, cultural aspects, set of rules in which the individual is involved. And Shiley is exploration, experimentation, energy, and experiences are kind of the buzzwords for their theories. Okay, so 20 to 30, leaving home, choosing a career, establishing adult identity, usually through a job, establishing adult relationships, marrying, starting a family, you know, reappraising commitments, absolutely. Life with being married and into your 30s and 40s, it's not about lust and love and giggles and all of that. It then becomes more centered on, I made this commitment, you haven't broken it, I haven't broken it, we've made this commitment together, and it's not fun. It's like being on a treadmill. I don't really feel the joy that I would like to feel, but I've made a commitment and it's going to be this way because of the commitment. And interesting that these theories talk about that. Okay, 30 to 40, settling in, purchasing a home. You know, you're pretty much on track with your career. You know, definitely conflicts arise, you're solving those, you're thinking of upward mobility. Yeah, definitely. I met a woman this last weekend, I think I shared it with you. Sometimes I talk so much. In fact, it wasn't with you. But anyways, I met, Elizabeth started playing with Ellie, this little girl. Did I tell you about this at the tractor pull? Okay, so I knew it wasn't with you. But anyway, so I'm talking to the mom, and she was beautiful. I mean, I'm not weird, but I thought, not that that's weird, but you know what I'm saying. I wasn't, she was just beautiful. I could appreciate her beauty, okay? She was a very tall woman, and with long hair, and she just was really, and she told me she was 47. Well, Ellie is 9 years old, I think 8, and so for her to be 47, her husband is a mechanic, my husband's a mechanic, and you know, we started talking, and I was like, gosh, I wish I would have had my kids a little older in life. Okay, why? Because I think I would have been wiser and, you know, more suited to do a better job. Okay, and the world, and so I immediately said to her, I said, so you were a geriatric OB, and then her little boy is 4, and she's 47. You do the math. Yeah. And I said, how did you like being a geriatric OB person, woman? And she said, I thought it was much to do about nothing. And I was like, good for you. No wonder why you look so good and so healthy.
Can you repeat what she said?
She said, I thought it was much to do about nothing. In other words, she was pregnant, she was gonna, take it to delivery and just whatever came up, she was gonna deal with it. And they were the ones that were so concerned and, made such a big whoopla over her being well into her 40s being pregnant. An OB geriatric mom is over 35. And we're going to learn about this, but this is where the DNA begins to falter a little bit. But if the woman has been on track and has been a wholesome woman, then typically there's nothing to worry about. But we're going to learn, that there are changes in the DNA, and women start to feel the countdown of their reproductive years at 30. Career goal conflict with motherhood, definitely. Although I think millennials, right? Millennial dads want to parent. They want to be in there. They want to, be a part of that. They want to do skin to skin. They want to be there when the kids come home. So, I think that your generation is much more cohesive, man to woman, because there's less stereotypical on, I worked with a woman here, she doesn't work here now, but she was a millennial, and her husband stayed home. She came to school, taught nursing, and then if their family needed more money, she would pick up a shift at a hospital to bring in more money because she could make more than he could. And so he stayed home. They had 3 or 4 kids, I don't really know, but it was up there. There for a while, I felt like she was always pregnant, I will say that. And then he would do things, they bought an old motorhome, and he redid the motorhome. And I mean an old motorhome. And when the kids were at school, he'd work on it 2-3 hours here, 2-3 hours there. After a couple years, they had like this beautiful motorhome that they would go out and have family vacations in. Facing transition, growing children, spend less time home. He probably went through that. You do have to reevaluate your relationship with your spouse, but what are you really reevaluating? Your commitment.
So that commitment is supposed to be better for worse, right?
Yeah.
So if you commit to that, then you stay together, right?
And richness and poorness,
All that, right?
and health
Or
or sickness. Yep. Development in middle adulthood, most of you are there, addressing midlife transitions. Okay, so now you're looking at, being generative, meaning are you generating what you want to leave behind? Adjustment to role changes, realizing that children are becoming adults. I talked about the sandwich generation. Arguments are going to come up. Definitely. As the kids get older, the argument intensity increases. Okay? Because you see that you have less time with your kids and you want to make an impact, and you're hoping that your spouse wants to. And when they don't, that's a major, major argument. Okay? Okay, perceiving in middle adulthood, you're beginning to look at your own mortality. Okay, so we've already established I'm in middle adulthood. Okay, I got to tell you, and I've said this once before to you, it is weird to me to get a mortgage and know that I'm going to die before that mortgage is due. It's weird for me to get a roof on my house and go, oh, this roof is going to last longer than I am. It's weird. And I think of that, and it's like, wow. And you begin to think of your own mortality. And all I can say is that it makes you want to live life better, longer. And have more fulfillment. Because you do see the end. Okay, reestablishing equilibrium in the 60s, is probably why I like being 63, is I've never had more balance in my life than I have now. Okay? And I like that. Grandchildren, you already know how I feel about that. Okay, you know that I need to develop hobbies and interests. I've already You know my plan, right? I've already given you my plan for retirement and downsizing and relocating to warm places. In my case, I want a cooler place to retire to. Okay, so here we just have kind of encapsulating what we've already learned, right? This is a good breakdown. Milestone, gross motors. You definitely, this slide, know this slide. There are a lot of developmental disabilities that are recognized because a child did not make their milestone. Okay, so that is it. Are there any questions? It is 10 o'clock, basically 9:55. Any questions on any of this? Oh, I want to read a question. Just give me a second. I'll make it well worth your time. Okay, so the question that was proposed by Karen was, how are we going to know about the test? After looking at the test, there were a lot of examples, like 5, boom, 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 right in a row. I was trying to look for a question to answer Karen, and those 5 questions were, the kid is doing this, what age group are they in? The kid's doing this, what age group they're in? And then it was one relatively, what should the psych tech communicate to parents about how they can offer anticipatory guidance to their child's growth and development? Okay, so that's a very encapsulating question, right? I'm looking for the one because it really demonstrated, now I wish I would have paid more. Okay, what instructions should a psych tech give to caretakers in order to handle a toddler's separation anxiety? Okay, so what was proposed by a couple of you was, okay, the study guide, I can get the answers out of the book, but I can't get the answers out of the lecture. The reason why I have been very descript in giving this lecture, because it's relatively, I mean, we've all aged, right? You remember aging, right? You remember a lot, is because now what you really need to do is know the age group, know what Piaget has to say about it, know what Erickson has to say about it, and what you would expect. So that's why I gave examples on a lot of this, is so to spur your thinking on with your own examples, and then so when you're reading a test question and they present an example, then either what age group is this, how would you manage it, how would you handle it, what is appropriate, and that is basically what I see as your test, okay? So, don't just linearly know this stuff. If you do, you won't do well on the test. You have to be able to dive at it from different angles, different examples, different things going on. That's abstract, but you guys are abstract thinkers, so I get to say that. Okay, anything else that you guys want to? Yeah. Yes, she texted me. I did not see her this morning, but she did text me. Okay, I'll see you guys on Monday. You make me feel normal.